You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we have another guest today, Ralph, aka Rick. He has an amazing bio. He is someone who serves. So I want to say thank you for your service. Thank you for what you've done for this country, United States.
Sure.
But you also have a ton of books, man. And these are not just some random books. You have power-packed action in these books. And it's very authentic to what you did in your previous career. And I can't wait to dive into some of the projects that you have been able to do. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for being able to clear your schedule to talk to our viewers and listeners, because you have a new recent project, Vital Mission, that is the fourth. Jake Fortina, hope I'm saying that right.
Perfect.
And I want you kind of just break down what sparked that whole movement, because I know everything has a humble beginning. So when you think about the first book project, kind of take us back real quick and share with us, what did that process look like for you?
Well, Shamaya, first of all, thanks for having me, man. I'm truly honored to be here with you. I know you've reached a lot of people. I know you're doing some great things. So I'm quite humbled to be able to have this opportunity at the end of the day. So thank you very much for that. After about almost 42 years of U.S. Army and Department of Defense service, I got to a place, Shamaya, where I could sort of see the handwriting on the wall. And I thought at one point I might have one more gig to do, to go work for a 4-star general, to be his political military advisor. And as it turns out, and the folks that hired me knew this, but we were just in a tough spot. My security clearance, I had a top secret security clearance. It had lapsed. And then COVID hit, and I had shipped my household goods. I was going to go work for this guy. I, was leaning into it. All we had to do was ship the dog, and we were going to fly in 2 days. And they said, we can't onboard you. And I started having heart issues, and I started having blood pressure issues, and my wife looks at me and she goes, Rick, I think the universe is screaming at you to retire. And so I was at a place where I knew that I wanted to do something else. I had already written a memoir about my time as the U.S. Defense Attaché to France, the senior U.S. Defense representative to France in the embassy in Paris for 4 years. And it was pretty well received. But I wanted to tell more of the story, and I kind of decided I wanted to go down a fiction road, because it would allow me to also add a little bit of a plot, if you will, a little bit of Hollywood, and it would be a little bit less onerous of having to have everything vetted by the Department of Defense and everybody else and their brother, because my first book had to be checked out by 8 departments and agencies, and even my first 2 novels had to be checked out by 4, so there was that. But I said, I'm going to try this fiction thing. And I wrote Major Jake Fortina and the Tier 1 Threat. And one of the reasons I wrote it, Shamaya, was I wanted to be able to tell people about all the behind the scenes work that goes on between our armed forces, between our law enforcement, between our intelligence people, between our diplomats out there in the embassies, everybody that's deployed out front. And there are all these peoples in our embassies that are working together to take care of quelling national security threats every day. So I wanted to get that story out there. I also wanted to talk about one of my passionate subjects, one of our great non-commissioned officers, our sergeants that are in our military. We have some of the best frontline leaders in the world, and we would not be the armed forces today without our sergeants. I also wanted to talk about our family members, and what they had to go through, what they have to go through, being married to a service member. That was very important to me as well. And then finally, I wanted to add a little bit of culture from places that I've lived in, Germany, France, Italy, I've deployed to Afghanistan. I deployed to Kosovo. I did some of that other stuff. But I wanted to talk about some of those aspects of living in other places. And maybe, like I like to tell people, it was kind of my mantra to want to, first of all, entertain. Books have to be entertaining. You got to have a plot. You got to make it exciting. You got to make it interesting. But I also wanted to educate and hopefully maybe on some level even inspire people, maybe even enlighten people a little bit. So those are the big things that kind of got me going down the path. And my first novel was very well received. You just don't know how a book's going to be, right? When you put it out there, you don't know. You may think you've written something decent. You may think you've written something, but you don't know until you start getting those reviews. And daggone it, I had, 4.8, 4.9 stars for a long time. I'm hanging right around there now with all my books. So people have really liked it. And one of the things they've liked is the authenticity aspect. I try to keep it real. My guy, Jake, he's a regular dude, if you will. And he finds himself in irregular, challenging circumstances, and he's got to overcome those, and he's got to use his wits, and he's got to use his dedication. But he's also a person who, he's got family issues he's got to deal with. He's a faithful guy, so that keeps him going, gets him through all this stuff. But he's not going to face any less challenges than anybody else on this planet at the end of the day. So my guy, Jake Fortina is not a guy who's going to walk into a room, with 15 bad dudes in front of him and take care of business in 40 seconds. That's not him. Okay. And you know what? There have been some great genres out there that have made tons of money in Hollywood, but that's not my guy. My guy's more of an authentic guy who's really got to deal with everyday's life challenges. And I tried to put as much of my past into the book, but even that said, 1/3, 40%, 1/3 roughly is still the plot. It's still Hollywood, and that's kind of how I get to write some exciting stories. So that's kind of what, and it's been fun. It's been challenging, as you can well imagine, especially getting the word out about the books. But creating books is a wonderful journey. I remember in my first book, I would wake up sometimes when I thought I was done with the book every morning about 4:30. And I would get what I would call spiritual downloads. It's like the Almighty's talking to me and saying, hey, you need to change this particular chapter, or you need to write this a different way. And this went on for like almost 6 weeks. I used to, I tell people I used to try to remember it when it would happen at 4 a.m, and then I always forget it. 2 hours later, I completely forget what was said, or what I thought about. And then I tried to record it on my phone, but then I was afraid of waking up my wife. And so I just started to get up early in the morning, which I think is the best time of day for me, is to, without getting off the tangent too much, it's my quiet time. It's my time to get into the good book, and that sort of thing, and start my day that way. But yeah, so I love the creation part of writing. It's challenging, and along the way, I learn a thing or two as well. So.
No, I think everything you said ties together, because when you talk about having those moments where you wake up and you feel like you're just being spoke to, it's funny you said that, because I actually experienced those situations where I'll randomly wake up and I feel like someone's been trying to reach me or communicate to me to have me do something. It always goes to like it's trying to nudge you to do something. And that's a perfect point in your whole interview, because I feel like that's why your books are doing so well, because there is always something in the background that's, if you will, like your North Star.
That's
it's
right.
Like when the show is growing back in the day, because 2017 is kind of like old to some people now. It's time moves, but we have to see if we're making progress, because there are times where even though the years are going by, if we're not careful, we are not growing in those years.
Man, you got that right.
That's you with your military background.
Sir, it's a learning journey. It's a learning journey. I'm still learning, and I think just from a learning perspective, I humbly believe that it's important for people to stay curious at the end of the day, because it's just part of the journey, right? And try to be aware, prayerfully aware even, of the signals out there that are telling you, that are there. The voice that's saying this is the path you need to be on, and keep walking. Try to keep walking in that light, if you will, too. So, but it's a constantly evolve. I don't think you're the same person you were 20 years ago, and I certainly would hope I'm not at the end of the day. So it's a definite journey, no doubt about it.
When you think about how you develop your characters in the books over time, how much did the research and your personal experience being in the military help you navigate those plot twists? Were they planned or were they just surprise? How did you map that out?
Oh, wow. That's like three questions inside of one question. Mapping out, let's just start with that. What in the writing business, there are what are called pantsers and planners. And you can imagine what a pantser is, somebody who flies by the seat of their pants, right? They got an idea, a rough idea, and they start writing, right? And some people can do that. James Patterson's of the world, he can do that, but now he's also doing outlines. There are other folks that can, Stephen King, I understand, is a complete pantser. The guy can just have an idea, have a general concept, have a general vector, and start and going after it. I can't do that. So what I end up doing, Shemaiah, is I will write like 50 scenes. I also have a general idea of a story. I've got a good idea of kind of a beginning and a rough idea of an ending. But the hardest part is getting between the two along your journey. So what I do, what works for me, is I will write out like 50 scenes. These aren't involved scenes. These are scenes with maybe 3 or 4 sentences in each one. Terrorists are digging a grave at a U.S. cemetery. Hezbollah terrorists in Paris, opening scene. And this is what they're after. And maybe another sentence. Done. And then I'll sit down and I'll crank out 3 to 5 pages based off of that. And that's kind of how I flesh things out at the end of the day. And then I just try to think of what my general theme might be, right? The first book was really much about staying faithful. Jake goes through some really rough, tough stuff, committing to duty, staying that course, staying on that North Star of, supporting and defending the Constitution. You use that term, and I would say for a military guy, that's probably it. Supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And so that was a general theme. My last book, my next book, hopefully not my last, my 4th book that's coming out in a couple weeks, that's a love story of a different kind, though. It's got a love story within a love story, so it's between two people, but it's also about a family member's love for other family members. And I don't want to get too much into detail on that, but for example, an uncle's love for his nephews or his nieces. So that's a more familiar, different kind of a thing. And then once I have those general themes, I'll do my best to map out. And, sometimes I'll get on my knees even and make sure I'm going in the right direction. You know what I mean? That I'm aligned with how I need to be aligned with my faith and everything else at the end of the day. And they're not prudish stories. I have some salty language in some of them, to be frank. I had my first book checked out by a dear friend, former commander of the 173rd Airborne Brigade. He'd been in combat in Afghanistan and everything, and he read it. And he goes, Rick, soldiers don't talk like that. And I knew he was right. And so I adapted some of the language in there and made it a little saltier in places because I know that some situations that stuff comes out. So It's not going to be, some vanilla, prudish story. And I had another friend, he's a retired 2-star general, actually. He read the book and he goes, Rick, I think the book reads about a G right now. You need to crank it up to PG-13. I go, okay, I hear you. You're right. And so I did put a mild sex scene in the first book. And I had a lady locally come up to me. She goes, did you have to put that scene in there? It's mild, I know, and all this stuff. She goes, I know, it sells books, all that stuff. And she was very gracious about it. But, I basically explained to her that I just had to meet that part, make that part a little bit, realistic without crossing some lines at the end of the day. And you know what I'm talking about. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny you say all that because I literally been talking about this part of all year in 2025. Everyone has been on this show. Obviously since beginning, but I'm just saying I've been noticing the pattern is people want realness. We live in a time where, please don't say it's mine, but I'm going to say it anyway. Everyone's talking about AI. You just cannot get away from AI right now. But we live in a time where people are craving what's real. AI is a great tool, but there's a lot of people out there who use it too much to where they depend on it to actually think and move for them versus use it as a tool to enhance their own original idea. So what I'm saying is, everything you're saying is people are craving for that realness. Being authentic is never played out. Look at your character, Jake. When you think about how that character is being developed, it has to be authentic because the reader is going to understand in 2 seconds if they're going to like this guy Jake or not. So that tees up this perfectly for the next question is when you reflect on the progress of Jake, how do you see him evolving in future possible books? Is he going to be something that reflects current leaders of today, military, or will he be like a timeless type figure soul, in your opinion?
I would hope he'd be the latter. I would hope he would be the latter, Shemaiah, the timeless soul, if you will, because he's a very faithful guy, and he knows that this planet thing is a short-term thing in the big scheme of things. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of integrity, I want him to keep that as he goes down the path. And I also tell folks, this is not the next George Patton or U.S. Grant or George Marshall or, God bless him, Colin C. Powell. He's not going to be one of those 4-star great Americans, okay? But he is going to do what he needs to do from a duty perspective, from who he authentically is, and with integrity at the end of the day. That's the kind of character that I want to have out there. So, yeah. And, at some point, Jake's going to run out of ammo, if you will, down the road. I'm not sure when. I'm hoping I think there's at least 2-3 more books out there I could write, which could still be realistic. I will tell you, my second book won a grand prize, Jake Fortina and the Roman Conspiracy, because I do take on some current day stuff politically. I try to rip stuff almost from the headlines and then create a story within that story. So, for example, Vital Mission, which is coming out, that story, I don't know if you're aware of this, a lot of Americans aren't, is about the more than 20,000 children that have been taken from the cities of Ukraine back into Russia by the Russians since the beginning of the war. And that number is not disputed. It was thought to be much higher than that initially, but that 20,000 is not disputed. And so that's something that I find, I can't even believe it's going on in the 21st century, but it is. And so that's a story I'm going to write about, but I'm going to write about it in the context of 2 young boys. And that's who's on my cover of the book, actually, at the end of the day. So, yeah. That's going to be Jake's next challenge. But yeah, to your original question, I'm going to try to make sure that he's not going to be perfect. He may make some mistakes, but he's not going to compromise his values. He's not going to compromise what's right here at the end of the day.
Yeah, speaking of challenges that characters do face in good movies and good books, it's something that it grabs people's attention. It kind of pulls them closer to the edge of their seat, like, oh man, what's going to happen next to this guy? Is he going to make it? Yeah. So my next question is that when you think about not shying away from moral complexity, why is it important for a writer to explore that with their characters, understanding the difference between the hero stage and the chapters of the flaws and hard choices that have to be made?
Because it comes back to your authenticity point. They're human. We're all flawed human beings. We're all flawed. Now, bajillions of dollars have been made of characters that could do almost anything, right? And that's cool. And I personally love watching James Bond flicks. I mean, I think they're fast moving, they're good. We know he's going to have to go after some tough stuff. I like the excitement. Not everything about them, but they're okay. But I would hope people relate to characters who truly are human. They're not hokey. There's not a lot of melodrama in the scene. You just kind of, have to try to portray them as going through life as best they can, meeting their challenges best they can. They may have some of their own internal dilemmas that they got to work through. May not be, you would hope in most cases it's clear, but like anybody else, we all face moral dilemmas in our lives. In my, second or third book, Jake's got a dilemma. He sees something he doesn't like in another officer. It's about someone who's very prejudicial, if you will, to other people, and he's got to figure out, how do I deal with this guy, man? What do I have to do to take care of this problem? And he's going to have to make some tough choices in terms of how he does that. So. Yeah. So, I want to keep them authentic, and I want to keep them real. I want to keep it real as much as I can, because I think that's what most readers, and sometimes you want to see the Marvel comic guys go out there and do their thing. Yeah. Again, that's a very popular thing. But, to your point, and you've been studying this topic now for the last year, I'm really hoping you're right about that what people are looking for is the realness and the authenticity. And not just the quick TikTok thing flashing by or whatever the case might be, but really kind of in-depth characters that are not perfect and have got some hard challenges they got to work through.
I believe not just the book, but in life in general, I believe challenges, they help you understand how high the stakes are. And until you have something that is putting you in a tough spot, one, you don't get to appreciate what it means to be alive. Because I think to be alive, you have to have something pushing you or something challenging you. And two, you don't truly reach your highest potential. Anybody can be in La La Land and life is breezy and easy, but sometimes the best things of life comes with the most challenging parts of life.
100%. I think we learn most of the good things in life from our failures, to be frank, from the things that we do poorly, if we're willing to learn from them. But that's where most of the learning takes place, I think, to your point.
When you think about your experience from military to being a publisher, being able to have these different life experiences, what is something that you kind of keep close to your chest, almost like a North Star? I'm going to make that visual again, that keeps you going? Because we can talk about this stuff, like you doing books and you had a great career, but as a human, we all have our tough days where it's like, man, I don't know if I can keep going.
I'll tell you, this is really funny that you asked this question. Because just yesterday I was reflecting on this. It was the people I served with for 28 years. It was the people who raised their hand, said, here's a blank check, including my life, for what I've sworn to do. And especially, but even later, but really, when I was a junior officer, when I was a captain, junior captain, 25, 26 years old, and had 120 soldiers standing from me, every color, every background, mostly middle class, though, I'll say, socio and lower middle class, socioeconomic. We had a few guys that came from money. I remember I had one guy who had a Porsche because his dad was super wealthy and all this, but they were just, that fabric of America. That's what it was to me. I had people with hyphenated, backgrounds, Japanese American, African American, British American, even in my unit. And I just took it as a huge, huge blessing to be able to get up every morning, strive with those people, train. We were standing off against the Soviet Union back then in Germany. We were training once a month to go off our garrisons and take on the Russians, even back then, in the Warsaw Pact, the Soviet Union. We were all in there for a common cause, and we respected each other. And even on some level, we loved each other. And that, to me, is priceless. It's priceless. And then along came my family, and they were part of the journey with me. My kids, my wife. When I was later a battalion commander, and you have a little bit of a broader view. And I was just so grateful that I was put in that position to lead Americans who had volunteered to do what they were going to do. And that sort of thing sustains me, and it will until I take my last breath, quite frankly.
Remember a guy, I'm bad with names, by the way, so don't ask the name. But
yeah.
He was a Air Force. And I'm not getting more detail because I don't want
to
say,
I got you.
Hey, you forgot me. He said something very powerful. It was literally at the barbershop after an interview.
A lot of good talking goes on there, my brother. I'll tell you. I talked to my guy quite a bit, but go ahead.
And he talked about all the amazing things he's done in his career and the records he broke, the histories he was able to make as African American. He said it was the dash. That's the most important thing. It's not the day you're born, the day you die. What happened in that dash? And I know he probably got that great wisdom for someone else or some other.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's really, I started thinking about that when you said all you said. I said that hit home. Because
I love that.
He said what he said is, what are you doing in that dash? It's not where you were born or where you grew up or what other excuses you want to paint and get.
Man, I love it. And
what
this is
you in the dash.
I love that. And this may sound a little corny, but we all have the gift of choice. The Almighty's given us that gift. Faith is a gift too. But we've been given the gift of choice to do every day, every minute, every hour, to do what we want to do. Now, there are limits. There are, of course, certain limits. We can't fly. We can't, I can't say that I'm going to go be the ambassador to country X tomorrow or whatever. That ain't going to happen. But in terms of living our daily lives and trying to figure out where we're trying to go, we have a lot of choices to make every single day. And a lot of it's about that dash that you're talking about and how that dash ends up being, completed at the end of our run. which is that's another metaphor almost, the dashing run at the end of the day. So
last thing I'll say in closing this out is the older I get, the more, and I'm still young, I don't have that much gray hair right now, but the more you start to realize you don't know how much you will miss something that's valuable until it's gone. And that will hit you like a ton of bricks. And it's always a good thing. What I mean by that is until you know that pain of a ton of bricks hitting you because you didn't appreciate something that was valuable and now it's gone, you can't go back in time and say, man, I wish I would have took that as value. You now have the gift and responsibility to help others be enlightened so that they don't get hit with a ton of bricks. Maybe they just get hit with a couple of bricks.
You know what? What you said is so profound, man. It is so profound. And I'm sure a lot of parents end up this way. When my older daughter, my first one, walked, was left the roost to go to school, left the house. You think, did I do enough? Was I good enough as a father? Did we spend enough time together? And it really recalibrates. And as you said, as you, it's the title of your podcast, man. It's refocus. It really refocuses you and say, okay, now how can I be better at this? I still got a long run to make here. And how can we do a better job every day? But it comes back to the lessons we were talking about before that they sometimes teach you, for those that truly have open hearts and so forth and minds and want to learn, can teach you so much.
Life is a vapor. It's here one moment and it's gone the next.
Yes.
And that's why I do this show. Because when I think about archiving people's stories, and maybe someone will listen to it and it changes their life, I can care less about the popularity. I can care less about any other accolades. But if one person can say, I want to be better because I heard this person on your show, that's why I do this. And I'm sure that's why you do your books. You hope that one reader will say, oh my God, like this. Yeah.
Well, again,
how you
that is profound.
It just does something to you.
It shows a very, very serving heart on your part, and it shows integrity. And I think it shows a ton of wisdom too at the end of the day, because, all the things we collect and all that stuff, we're not taking that with us. But what you just described, that's enduring. That is definitely enduring. It's great.
I don't talk about my older brother a whole lot for some reasons. But one thing that he has taught me is that you get to choose.
Right.
No matter what cards are dealt, no matter what you are thinking, outside this moment, it's not them.
That's you. Spot on.
And that's
absolutely spot on.
That I respect the heck out of my older brother. And if he hears this show, I might have to find a way to get it to him so he can hear it.
Thank you so much. That's spot on.
Yeah. You really don't get to live and experience life to the fullest until you actually choose to. Too many times we wait for that special moment, or we wait for things to be better, or we wait for the perfect opportunity. But one thing I've been saying all year, I'm going to let you have the floor for your last thoughts. One thing I've been saying all year in 2025 to people, especially after a show, is we have a window in life. That's it. And once that window closes, we cannot go back in time and live again. So when you have the moment of opportunity, the present moment, that's all you have. You speak of the dash, that window is all you have, because soon as it runs out, you can't say, oh, I wish I can go back and make it right with so-and-so. I wish I would have helped someone with this. I wish I would have started that. Once it closes, that is the harsh truth of life. So you have to live now, not later, because it will never come later.
You got it, 100%. And the only thing I would simply humbly add to what you said about being able to choose is, I remember a man many years ago, I think it was Robert Schuller, who said that every good deed and every major goal or objective is accomplished in life by a positive thought. A positive thought. I used to have an old football coach. He taught us this thing that basically was a way of bridging that thought, right? I can. That's the first thing you can do this. I will do this. And no, then at the end of the day, I must do this. And it was a huge lesson for me, as a high school ball player and just beyond the field or whatever, just going off into, the United States Army and beyond was, if you just keep those good thoughts coming, man, and realize you're not fully charged all the time. By the way, you're walking, with a loving God above you, then you can do a lot of things, and you can really make something out of that dash that's been given to us, that gift of a dash.
Listen, Refocus Radio, talking to Rick, and you can find him everywhere in the show notes where it points and tells you. Y'all know the drill in the show. Tell him to give us his website and all that. But I want to do something different. The way I want to close this episode is on Live in the Moment, because this will never come in a billion years. What will you say to young men out there who feel like they're lost, but they have that nudge that they know there's greater for their life? They know they can accomplish things, but maybe, just maybe, they're just hard-headed in their own way. What would you say to them?
Oh, that's wonderful, man. That's wonderful. I would simply say is listen to that voice. Listen to that urging and act on that urging. You have the power within you, brother. You have it. It's there. Take that first step. There's the old Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with that first step. Take it. Go on. Step out in faith, and believe that we have a loving God who wants the best for us. It's not to say we're not going to be challenged, not to say we're going to get off that path. Not to say we're going to occasionally get slapped upside the head because we deserve it. But I would simply say, man, listen to that voice. And you know what? The people that are around those young men, there's people that love you. That talk to those people. They love you. They want you to do well. And they know you have it within you as well. So, step out in faith. You may think, okay, I don't know if I can go do that. You can do it. You can do it.
You must do it.
You must do it. Amen. Bam.
Yeah. Yeah. If y'all got anything from his books and what we've been talking about, whatever it is, you must do it. Make that phone call. Make that dream happen.
Roger that.
I'd rather pass away trying versus sitting down and not even have a clue.
Right on.
With that, I want to say to Rick, thank you for your time, man.
Thank you, sir. It was a great journey. It was a great discussion. You're walking in the light, man, and you just keep going because you're doing great things, and greater things are to come. I'm sure of that.